I called 3 friends last week. No one answered. Not voicemail. Not a busy signal. Just ringing. At first, I told myself it meant nothing. Different schedules. Phones on silent. Life being life. But after the 3rd call went unanswered, a quiet thought settled in. Maybe they don't think of me anymore. And then, almost immediately, maybe I don't think of them enough either. That realization stayed with me longer than I expected. It wasn't sharp. It wasn't dramatic. It was soft. Heavy in a way that's hard to explain. I started thinking about all the people who once filled my days. Friends from childhood. People who knew my parents. Who knew the street I grew up on. Friends from school. From work. From neighborhoods I don't live in anymore. At one point, my life was crowded with names. We didn't schedule friendships back then. We just showed up. We sat next to each other. Walked home together. Shared complaints, laughter, silence. Friendship felt effortless. It was part of the air. Then life began to move. Careers started. Families grew. Responsibilities stacked one on top of another. We didn't argue. We didn't fall out. We just drifted. Calls became shorter. Then less frequent. Visits turned into plans. Plans turned into sometime. And sometime quietly turned into never. I see it now, looking back. At the time, it didn't feel like loss. It felt like adulthood. I told myself I'd reach out later. When things slowed down. When there was more time. I didn't realize time doesn't slow. It just moves on without asking. These days, I attend community events sometimes. I recognize faces. But the chairs next to me are empty. Not because no one is there. But because the people who once would have been there with me are somewhere else now. Sometimes I walk through old neighborhoods. Houses still standing. Trees still taller than they used to be. I remember who lived where. Who I borrowed tools from. Who knocked on my door without calling first. Those memories feel warm. And lonely at the same time. The phone sits on the table most days. I don't check it as often as I used to. Not because I don't care. But because part of me doesn't want to face how quiet it can be. There's a strange balance between pride and regret. Pride says, I don't want to bother anyone. I don't want to seem needy. Regret whispers. What if they were waiting for you to call? I think about the past. Letters that took days to arrive, but meant something when they did. Phone calls that lasted an hour, without looking at a clock. Visits planned around effort, not convenience. Now communication is instant. And yet connection feels harder. There were moments I could have reached out. Moments I didn't. I assumed there would be time later. That assumption feels heavier now. I don't blame anyone. Not my friends. Not myself. Life is good at pulling people in different directions. And silence grows easily, when no one names it. I've learned something in these later years. Friendship doesn't always fade because love disappears. Sometimes it fades because both sides wait. Each thinking the other is busy, or uninterested, or already gone. Friendship is a two-way street. And sometimes, both sides are standing on the sidewalk, waiting for the other to step forward. I don't know how many chances remain. None of us do. But I know this. There are names I still remember clearly. Voices I would recognize immediately. Stories that still live in me, even if we haven't shared them in years. So I leave you with this thought. Not as pressure. Not as regret. Just as an invitation to reflect. Which friendships are worth rekindling? Before time decides for us that it's too late.